Hello. This one might be brief, but I'm interested to see what it leads to because I was just watching The Queer Ultimatum and it just has me thinking about things that I mean, these are not new, but different things have come together in my mind that have made it new almost. I guess I'll go back a little bit. So I've been thinking a lot lately about choices and the way in which current society, modern society, we're inundated with choices that we did not used to have. Like we have the choice to, so much more choice in our music. Obviously we used to listen to the radio. We didn't have any choice. Then there was individual, like records that could be purchased. And then you'd choose which record or track or CD you're listening to, right? Which album. Then, modern music listening is, for most people, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, whatever, anything allows you to listen to one song from an artist. You don't need to listen, which of course you could have done that to begin with, but I think I remember reading an article on this somewhere, the way the Beatles revolutionized the way we listen to music because it became about the single rather than about the album. And I just think obviously we see that now with our music listening patterns. On Spotify, I use Spotify. There's playlists that are made for me, which is in some ways like a radio, but of course then there is still the critique that, AI is choosing what you listen to rather than a real person like it would be on the radio, which is fascinating. I had that conversation with Sam recently, which is fascinating. But again, there's also just like, I find it with myself listening to music all the time. I mean, I could be on Spotify, like listening to a song and enjoying it, but even halfway through being like, oh, I just want to skip to the next song. I can't turn that off right now because my keyboard doesn't have batteries. So, maybe I couldn't. There's like nothing I could do. Yeah. But thinking about how we're inundated with choices, and that's like part of what, from my understanding, I don't want to say induces ADHD, but ultimately what I'm getting at is queerness. Queerness and what it is, and what I guess I wish was more understood, or what I wish it was appreciated for the fullness of it. Because what queerness is, or what, and I don't want to say should, but queerness ought to suggest to us that we are not categorizable. We're going the wrong route when we take queerness and use it to basically create just a new categorization system on top of the categorization system we already had. It's like the way any resistance to capitalism is so massive that any resistance to it, like capitalism, like eats, like even queerness, like capitalism then capitalizes on it, and then we are just sold more products that meet us in our new categorization. That we decide, oh, well, I'm giving myself this label, so I am free to decide what I am, and I'm free in choosing this label. And ultimately, you're choosing a label from the list of labels that were given to you by the system. What queerness ought to suggest to us is that we are not categorizable. We don't fit into boxes neatly. We don't. And that's the beauty of our humanity. We don't fit into categories easily. We don't, it's not a yes or no. It's not a, do I want to listen to the song or do I want to skip to the next song? It's both. I mean, that's an off. Oh my fucking God. The texts are going to piss me off because it's never like this until I go to record and then the group chat's live all of a sudden. Oh my fucking God. Stop. Like I said, my keyboard batteries are dead, so I can't put do not disturb on my, oh, I think it just worked because I did it on my phone. I think it's going to work. I'm coming from a bit of an irritable place. My body is in a bit of a recovery mode, we could say. So that's where I'm at, full transparency. However, what I'm suggesting is, again, we lose when our only form of resistance fits itself neatly back into the original system that we were attempting to resist in the first place. Queerness, of all things. What it was born from, or, I mean, chicken or the egg, how the label came to be about, how it all came to be about was that there were people who felt and were brave enough to say that they felt beyond the limitations, the categorizations that they were originally given, beyond the boundaries of what they were told they were allowed to feel. People felt it and were brave enough to be public, to pursue what they were told was wrong or taboo, etc., etc. It's revolutionary. So for us to take that and allow it to be reintegrated back into the original system, by feeding the original system more labels and more boxes, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing humanity a disservice. And we're giving ourselves more choices. We tell ourselves, well, you need to figure out your sexuality. You need to figure out, do you like this? Do you like this? Now you need to figure out your gender. Are you this or are you this? And we're putting this in the category of queerness. Queerness is to say, I don't have to like this or this. Queerness is to say, I transcend liking this or this. I just like. I just love. I follow feeling. I am a fluid being. And it's not a matter of this or this. We are so much more nuanced than that. I mean, we're selling humanity short. And again, that is, how do I want to put this? That is what we're beginning with. At least those of us in this time period. We're beginning with being born into a system that it's attempting to take something as massive and expansive and nuanced and detailed and expansive as consciousness and spirit, and funnel it into these categories so that it can be neatly ordered, neatly oppressed, neatly sold to. That's what we're born into. And then, of course, queerness is this revolutionary thing where we're breaking free, right, of these original boundaries and categories. But it does not do us anything if we break free of the categories only to create more categories and put us in more boxes. We're just contributing to the same thing which oppresses us, which is this matrix of identity that bars you. It bars you from being a free spirit, which is what we are. It's sad. It's sad to see. It's like we're losing. But queerness in its existence, the root of it, what we're all actually after is freedom. freedom to love, freedom to express, freedom to experience, freedom to be free, freedom to be a paradox, because that's the nature of what we are. What we are is everything. What we are, what we come from, our source is all. Meaning, within all exists the poles of everything, the paradoxes, the love and the hate, the fear and the certainty, the known and the unknown, like logic and feeling. I mean, what we are is so much larger, so much more beautiful and magnificent and expansive than anything that could fit into a category. And queerness, its existence, is proof of that. And it ought to suggest to us that we forego, I mean, labels are helpful in a society, or identifiers, categories are helpful in important ways. Absolutely. It is important when I go to the doctor that they know what the fuck I have going on so they can properly assist me. Right? Obviously, the male sex and the female sex, and those are not the only two sexes. We know that. But obviously I'm going to receive, there's different, hormones run differently, shit runs differently in my body. Obviously, people born with a womb can obviously, they need different care. So, I'm not calling for, total anarchy. But some structure, yes, some structure is useful. However, when it comes down to who I am, like a box I check at the doctor's office, it doesn't define me. So I'm not concerned about what I have to check. It doesn't define me. Obviously, when it comes down to how I live my life and who and what I am and what experiences I allow myself to have, anything in mind that I believe, oh, well, I'm this thing, so I'm in this box, you're barring yourself subconsciously from experiences, which, again, it's up to your preference. Like you that's kind of the point. I mean, not the point, but that's a part of this experience of coming from source, all that is, and being individual, is that we get to play that game. We get to do that thing where we say, I'm going to program this thing. This one's going to be mine for this lifetime, and I'm going to play around with that. But the truth is, what we are really after is freedom to connect in the ways we choose to connect, we desire to connect. It's almost like, I feel as though we're after freedom in such a massive way. I often think about, of course, like what I was thinking about this at work the other day, thinking about desire and in what ways have my desires been influenced to the point of can I tell what is authentic to me, like what I wanted as a little girl, what I wanted, and authentically what I want deeper than whatever I've been socialized to want. Like, can I tell? And maybe, I mean, again, everything is fluid, so there isn't always, or there isn't ever, like a harsh line where you can say, oh, that I was socialized and programmed to want, that I actually want. Oftentimes they go together, and it's, or they are the same thing, but the programming has defigured or just misshapen that desire. Because, for instance, we talk about, like, when people are teaching how to manifest money, how to manifest wealth, they say, well, it's not wealth that you want necessarily, it's freedom. You want to be able to, on a Wednesday, just get in your car and take a road trip across the country and not have to, just be able to do that because you have the money to do that, and you don't owe your time anywhere on a random Wednesday, that you can just do that. And two, there's no, like, to do something like that when you're tight on cash, for most of us, there's guilt because you're like, oh, this needs to be a smart purchase. It needs to be a logical, like a purchase that, there's guilt for whatever reason associated with like not having wealth for a lot of us. There's an emotional weight to it. It's like, I think it's just because of the way success and wealth are so linked success and wealth, and then success is so linked to value and worth. That's like a nice cocktail of emotional weight that we're all kind of navigating on the daily. And it's a part of like healing if you are healing like money wounds within your bloodline, which I feel as though most of us are, especially like living in the world where the gap between, the average person and the billionaire is just exponentially increasing, which is just kind of how capital works, unfortunately. But also, it doesn't. I feel like that's like a mindset thing that we are shifting because, yes, logically we're taught that's how capital works, but in the feeling sense, we understand that abundance is a frequency. It's just like there have been intentional, I don't know if they're intentional, but they seem intentional bars put on the consciousness of those of us who are not the billionaires. There are bars on our ability to see clearly that frequency, which is our natural state. Like what we come from is everything. We are abundant. But there have been bars. Things have disfigured and misshapen. It's illusion, ultimately. Things have disfigured and misshapen by way of illusion what we see and how we navigate. And that's what gets in the way. It's like we have that innate desire and we have that certainty. We have our individual and collective intuition, which guides us in the right direction or in the direction that is fulfilling. Like we're naturally on a path of and to fulfillment. It is just these illusions which get in the way of seeing clearly what's in front of you, what's within you, and just the how to achieve and how to maintain a state. Like we're not given any of the tools, and we're not really given the truth about what we are. So that's why we fall into this thing of like searching for any category that will accept us, or any, group or any belief. Like we're searching for structure. We don't like the structure we were given, so we say, let's create this new structure and I'm going to fit into this new structure. But the truth is, we want freedom from these structures. We want freedom. By thinking about, I don't know how I lost the train, but thinking about desire and the desires of like, okay, this is what I authentically want and this is what I was programmed to want. Like I said, they're oftentimes one and the same. It's just that the programming clouds your vision of it. So when we're talking about wealth, again, it's like you're not really looking for money, you're looking for freedom. But of course, by way of how things are set up, it comes in the way of money. So I'm often, when I'm desiring something, because I logically know that to desire is to have it, I know, which Joseph is so much of that wisdom I've gotten from Joseph, because I logically know that, it fascinates me that I would still desire something and feel like a longing for something, because I know the truth is that like in any moment I am fulfilled, and it's a matter of me accepting that and me seeing that truth for what it is, rather than like, it's just like we're overwhelmed by the decisions on the daily that kind of like, it's almost like they're just distractions basically to make us feel as though we have control over our lives, when in reality we only have control within the set of system that we're given, and like so much is done to maintain us staying in the maze and being like, oh yes, I get to choose, like, do I want like the taco or do I want the burger, and like I'm free to choose that. It's this elusive freedom because I'm still making the choice within the framework of what's available to me or what I've been told is available to me. So it's the same way with queerness. It's like and your sexuality. It's like I don't know what to call it, like this overarching. Of course, capitalism is tied up in there, but they're just it's larger than capitalism because it's not just about how we make capitalism, puts limits and bars on our how we make financial decisions, and ultimately because of what it is, it does impact our emotional decisions too, and our just like meeting our needs. Like those decisions are impacted by capitalism, but there is also just this like larger, even beyond capitalism, that I don't even know what it would be called, but it is, we are living deprived of the truth about what we are, that we come from a source that is all. We are connected to all things, that we are one. It's larger than, it's a level of knowledge, or I don't even know if it's knowledge. I think it's wisdom. I don't know what it is. It's truth. We're barred from truth about what the fuck we are and how powerful we actually are. And the illusions cloud our wisdom, they cloud our intuition, they cloud our vision. And so it's a matter of, it's not easy to see through illusion. I mean, maybe it is, and maybe that's something I need to work, because so much is like what you create. I mean, it is what you create. I don't know, I get myself into a tunnel a little bit, and I feel often like that's what happens. It's like it's like, yes, capitalism is representative of the physical matrix, but there is a mental matrix on the individual and collective mind. On the level of mind, there is a matrix. That's really what we're working towards. Capitalism is just kind of the physical manifestation, physical representation of that. So I don't know how or why it's the way it is, but that is the way it is. And it's just unfortunate when the acts of resistance to that get eaten up by, it's like what we're resisting is the bars on our minds, the limiting beliefs, what we're resisting, what we want to be free of. We want to have clear state of mind. We want access to our clear and ever true and always knowing intuition. We want freedom from what clouds. We want freedom from illusion. And then all of that out here is secondary to that, because everything happens within first. Everything happens on the level of mind first. And your physical reality is just representative of what the state of the collective mind, which is why like it's useless for us to point at something in the physical reality and say, I'm really upset about this. It happens in here first. The outside can only reflect what's within. Yes, that happens on an individual level. That also happens on a collective level. So when we're upset about who's running the country, rightfully so, we have to understand it happens within first. There's a level of responsibility that is both individual and collective, but it begins individually first. What we have to do, the work, is going within and untangling the illusions that have been programmed, that have been learned by way of trauma, by way of living in a physical, like a reality where we are not given the wisdom of what we really are from the jump. We're deprived of our truth from the jump, and we're told that we're something else. And obviously everything happens as it's meant to. This time period, people are awakening. Like, it's the age of the Aquarius. It was what was going to happen. And also with the internet, we are awakening more and more because we have more connectivity. We have more access to truth by way of other people, by way of learning things that we never would have learned or encountered otherwise. You have to think about the internet as a physical manifestation of the connectivity that already exists within us and between us. So I guess I just go back to queerness, because we are society's one shot. You know what I mean? Not really. Maybe that's silly. But queerness is the opportunity to prove. Queerness is such a beautiful, perfect example of the truth, which is we are so much more than we've been led to believe. It's like you have to be able to hold both truths that, yeah, like each of us, like in our lifetime, we won't see this to fruition. Like, well, who's to say? There's always the element of unknown. I don't know. I don't control everything. I don't know. But our individual lifetimes, like, by me sharing this information, like, we're not going to just all wake up by tomorrow. Like, it doesn't happen that way. Awakening is a process, and you awaken over your lifetime to whatever, like, varying degrees. I mean, the degree to which somebody awakens / doesn't, I don't know why or how that works. But what I do know is we are both massive and we're small at the same time. It's like I understand, like, I can only do, and I'm only going to do the best that I can in this lifetime. But I know that that small role I'm playing is very important in the collective. And the more of us that play the small role, the more massive the collective transformation can be. Like, that's why people talk about shadow work. They talk about healing your trauma and how important that is. Like, that is what this is. Like, that is what will change the physical reality, is healing on the individual level. Healing on the individual level creates healing on the collective level. And I struggle to really explain that. And I don't know if it has to do with my own blind spots, if it has to do with just where we're at as a society. We're in an interesting period where I know, like, the first, like, let's say, like, 20 years of my life, I'm 27. First 20 years of my life, it was like, and maybe I would say the first 18-ish, you can't, again, nothing, you can't really pin anything down, but you can, it's fluid. I would say the first, between 15 to 20 years of my life, the thinking was very, like, as a woman, and at least this is within my own psychology, because again, things are fluid, people are on different timelines. So for you, this may not have been the case. However, I do think for a large collective of us, this was the case. So we're talking from the years of like 97 to like 2018. It was, I was not supposed to think I was special. Like, I was not supposed to have high self-esteem. Like, that was bad. Like, that, like, for a woman to think highly of herself, like, she's a bitch. Like, she's got an ego. Like, she's da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, there's something evil about it, and there was, like, guilt and shame attached to it. Now, for the last, I'd say, 7 to 10 years of my life, it's been more and more ever increasingly like, no, we want women to feel good about themselves. Like, we like when we see a confident woman, and we're becoming more and more a society of that. Whether or not the men are with us in that, I don't know, but I know the women are. Like, we've become like a much more empowered and collectively supportive group, and that's where we're headed. And it's like, how to explain? I guess if you're here with me in this level of awareness, you'll get it, and if you're not, you won't, and you'll point at me and say crazy. But we live on different timelines. I mean, there's certainly have to be women when, back when I was 15, who were thinking like I'm thinking now, and they were the forerunners, right? They were the ones who were understood, obviously. Yes, like, it's good for you to be like, it's good. And it's not even just women, it's just like in general, like it's good for the individual to feel good about themselves. That's a good thing. I come from Italian immigrant, like all Italians, Italian immigrant family to this country, where the mindset is very much, you must earn your place. Nothing good comes without suffering and hard work. Everything is suffering and hard work, and you must earn your place. And don't ask for too much. that mentality from a Catholic upbringing, which is also very like, I mean, the guilt around sex, around sexuality, around, yeah, liking yourself, honestly, like you're supposed to be humble, but it's not humble in like a, there is humility, but like being humble is, it's just like this, like you're not supposed to be flouting your accomplishments or proud of anything. Like it's just this weird guilt and shame attached to feeling good about yourself. So that's what I come from. So what I'm saying is we're on different timelines. Like this was something I had to, for whatever reason, work through and live through and experience and heal in my family's lifetime in the larger scope of our generational trauma. Whereas somebody living in the same calendar year as me, like maybe born in the same year, 97, may have been born into a family where that was healed a generation prior. So that wasn't, that kind of thinking, that kind of shame and judgment of self and of others and of like, oh, like comparison, like that person may not even have experienced that at all. They may have already been in this forward thinking that I am now experiencing because for whatever reason, they already healed that in their generational line, whatever it is. This reality is much more code-y than you'd think. Like, it's much more intelligent than we've been led to believe. Because we've been led to believe that we are just these fleshy, weak human things, and you know, all we can do is hold on till the weekend and get belligerent drunk because it's our only relief and whatever. And there's no judgment, you know, like we've found ways to survive. That's really what it is. But all of this like it's because we're cut off from the truth of what we are, how important we each are, how valuable we each are, and the purpose of what we're doing here. We're cut off from access to our purpose. And I don't know why. I don't have any, you know, of the answers of like, that's something in the past year I've always, this is like a running joke between me and Source, between me and God, that it's like, you can ask God lots of questions and get answers, which God is really self. It's the source within. It's intuition. It's not some human figure outside casting judgments of right and wrong. None of that. Forget that. Let that go. You can ask God, source, whatever, lots of questions, and you'll get answers. You'll get insights. But when you ask why, you rarely get an answer to a why question. And when you ask how, it depends on the question, but oftentimes when I ask how, I'm told that's up to me. Because that's kind of the power we have as the individual, is to create the story. Like, I cannot control, at least while I'm here in this vessel, and my consciousness as a human being, I can't control like the time period I was born into, or the family line I was born into, or you know, the country, any of these things, are like what's happening with the state of the country on like this large, like political, social, economic level. I as an individual cannot control that, but I as an individual can control the story, the story I tell myself, and that's connected to purpose. The how of how this came to be, or I guess you do get a little bit of why, because you can include a why in your story, but that's the freedom. But you also, of course, want to be careful with stories, because again, we've been put into, like, we're in this mind matrix where our real, true, authentic desire for freedom and connection, like real connection, like beyond the barriers of, well, I'm sexually attracted to this group, so these are my friends and these are my potential partners, and this, it's like, oh my God. It's so much more fluid than that. And we're cutting ourselves off at the ankles when we look at a group of, especially a group as large as like an entire gender, and we say like, these are all my potential partners. No, they're not. you know a potential partner, it's based on energy. You feel it. It's not just like they've oversexed us in a way. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, is the level of sex. And it's, to say oversexed, it does not mean like, this is not a like a Puritan doing away with sex thing at all. That's not what I'm saying. Sex is powerful and divine and a part of what we are, you know? It's a part of the experience here. We've just been oversexed in a way that like it has crept into how we interact with each other just on the daily, and it doesn't have to be there in the way that it is there. Like our understanding of sex for the most part is skewed, and that it again, it's because the true desire is there. Sex as it exists, sex is desire in a way. That's there, and that's true, and that's an authentic desire and impetus for us, and it's an authentic drive. But the illusions have confused us about what it looks like, and they've confused us on what exactly we really want and why we drive for sex and why. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I don't know why today I felt like sitting down to talk about this. I guess I'm just like, I'm feeling as a human like so overwhelmed with choices. And like I was even thinking about this like we're at work, because, you know, we ask, people are ordering their coffee, and it's like, okay, first question, like they want a latte, for instance. I say, okay, first question, hot or iced? Next question, do you want it in a for here cup or a to-go cup? Next question, which milk do you want? Next question, do you want any flavor or sugar or anything else in it? You know, it's like, and you just see, sometimes I just feel like bad asking people, because you can see like, it's just like, look, they just want a fucking coffee, and here I am with like hitting them with 15 questions. Like, well, how do you want it? Well, let's get exact about exactly how you want to craft the perfect coffee that's going to satisfy you and meet all your needs. It's just like so much pressure that we put on ourselves when, like, if we were to take this pressure off and say, sorry, my computer went black. If we were to take this pressure off and say, no, you don't need to decide, you know, I mean, it's a bit different. We're talking about coffee versus like sexuality. Obviously, this is just an example, but it's like, we don't need to put all this pressure on the coffee. We don't need to put all this pressure on the decision of sexuality, because I've been all over the board. There was a period of my life and it's like the words I'm about to use, I'm aware, I believed, I thought, what does that mean? Because I could also just say I was. But I mean, ultimately, if you believe and think something about yourself, you are that thing. I mean, that's how this works. But underneath, I mean, I guess it's on one level, that's how this works. Because underneath it all, of course, you are the whole of the thing. You are source. But while we're here, while we're doing this, if you believe and you think you are something, then that's what you are. So I was asexual. I was bisexual. I was a lesbian. I was a lesbian, and I was certain I will never be with a man. Now I just use queer, because I never really liked those labels to begin with. I never really was somebody that was like, this is my label. I was always like, I guess I'm this. I guess I'm asexual because like none of this is clicking for me. I guess I'm a lesbian. I guess I'm this. I'm not any of those things. I'm not a fucking label. You cannot put me into a label. You cannot put me into 8 letters. You cannot put me into one word. I transcend. We all do. It's just a matter of like, are you going to allow yourself that freedom? I know it's scary because, I mean, I think that's what the matrix, it's a fear-based matrix. Like, we've been led to believe that we don't want more, like, or we're attempted to be led to believe we don't want more, that we're comfortable within our box. And it's like, oh, maybe I'm not comfortable in this box, but like, there's another box over here I can hop to. Or like, look, we're making new boxes. I can hop into that matrix. And it's like, No, you want freedom from the matrix. You want freedom from these categories which actually restrict you. They may be comfortable, but oftentimes the comfort is an illusion. I don't know. Because I know on my day-to-day, like I know I'm a free spirit. I know people like tell me that. I know people like hear my stories. They see the way I live, they hear my thoughts, they hear my experiences, and they think like, oh wow, like, well, that's for you. Like that's not for me. Like I don't like that kind of a life, but like you're inspiring and I'm happy to see you live it. You're so free. But I question that if people really, I think they wouldn't be drawn to me unless they did recognize within themselves something that they wanted, like unless they did recognize that the freedom that I have they want as well, because because they have it already. It's just like a matter of letting yourself have it. Because if I think about myself like a decade ago, I was not free like this, girl. Myself a decade ago, I guess I would have been like, yeah, like 17, 18, like myself like in my first year of college. I mean, I was in such a different place. Like I was so perfectionistic and looking for like concrete physical markers to let me know that I was valuable. The grades or like attention from men, women, whatever, like any kind of like I was looking for like external validation, I guess that's what I'm thinking of. And I hadn't had the opportunity to deal with like to do my healing or deal with my trauma yet, because when when you're still living it, you can't. That's kind of the thing with all of this, is that healing takes time and it is a journey. That's why awakening is not one instant. You have different phases of it and different points on your timeline that become clearer and clearer to you, like as you look back. And the more awake you become, the more you can see like points at which you were really like you were experiencing a big awakening. Like I can look back and identify like certain ages just based on what was happening and what was coming out of me at that time. But yeah, if I think about myself like at 18, like I was extremely socially anxious, like physical symptoms, sweating and just heart racing and like all that. And then also like the mental symptoms, like just the barrage of intrusive thoughts. I mean, just laying my head down at night, that was just, I knew what awaited me was just, oh my goodness. I think this is why I get so passionate about like sharing with people who I am and like my thoughts and ideas, because I look back on my old life. And of course, again, like I'm not perfect right now. I'm not at my completion. I'm still whatever, but it's like I can clearly look back to 18, 19, like my earlier life, my child, whatever. I can look back and I can see like how profoundly my life has changed and improved by doing the healing work, by going in, and also by accepting the reality, which is the reality we've been sold is not the truth. It's covering something up. It's what's that thing in like a desert? Is it a mirage? Wait, is that the word I'm looking for? I can't type because my batteries are dead on my thing, so I can't look it up. But whatever it is in a desert, that's like it's an illusion, basically. I don't know. I get so passionate because again, like I can see how much my life has changed and improved and enhanced, and there's so much more joy, there's so much more peace, there's so much more happiness. Like, it's painful to, I don't want to say it like that. It's heartbreaking, honestly, to think of my past self and think there are people still there. And, there are people still who can't put their head down at night without the intrusive thoughts. And if you don't, I think most of us know what intrusive thoughts are. But if you don't, like, they can be so fucking awful, dude. Like, just fucking nasty. Just mean. And just cruel, because it's like your worst nightmare that's just being, ugh, I don't know. And you it's a journey, but you get to a point where you understand, like, the thoughts are not your enemy, you know. It's just, it's an unfortunate byproduct of trauma and of living in a world where we are barred from the truth of what we are so aggressively. It's beautiful, really, to embark on the healing journey because of what it does to you and you. Like, I guess we kind of talked about this earlier, like the relationship to self. We're not really encouraged to have a relationship with ourself. And it's this interesting thing, because even today, I feel like I experience guilt at times for having a relationship with myself, or showcasing that relationship to myself, because I fear, you know, it coming across as like egoic or self-involved or all of these things. And it's difficult for me to explain how I am profoundly better to society, to the people in my life, because of my relationship to myself. I am oh, that's a big release. I I feel like I needed to say that. Like, that those words needed to come out of me, because even I needed to understand that, because it's been coming to a surface lately for me, of like feeling this guilt for having a relationship to myself, you know, because I can see that I don't it's not like a common thing, I think, in society, like to have such a relationship to yourself. I've always kind of been this way, and it wasn't until my like by this way I mean aware of my relationship to myself, and like I just always felt like a closeness with myself. And I was aware, like when I was younger, that was like I always felt like a we. Like I never felt like a me. I felt like a we. And I don't know, that was just the way things were. And like I think at high school age I started to feel like, oh, maybe this is kind of weird. Like maybe it doesn't seem like everybody feels this way. And then, you know, I'm in college, and I'm delving into like the rhetoric of psychology and different diagnoses, and thinking like, okay, like it kind of makes sense as a trauma response. That's why. But either way, however I got to this point, it has really only served me, because I've always felt, like I said, like a we. But then it wasn't until I started like my healing journey that I was always aware of my relationship to myself. But then once I was in my 20s and began like really healing, like I finally had the mental space to be able to heal. Like things were stable enough in my life finally that I could start healing. I became aware, oh, I can make my relationship to myself more loving. Like I can make it more friendly. I can make it more expansive. Like we can grow this. And so, yeah, even today I feel like guilt at times for showcasing my relationship to myself, because this is my best friend right here, hands down. Nobody knows me like her, and I don't expect anybody to know me like her. That's my bitch, and I will have her back no matter what. I can be totally, like, I can be exiled by everybody. Obviously that would be devastating to me. Like, I'm not saying that I would just be fine. Like, I love the people in my life immensely, and they are like extremely important to me. I'm just saying that, like, at the end of the day, I know she has my back no matter what. No matter what happens. We've got each other's back. That's me and my girl. That's me and my girl Isabella. We've been through this shit together. And I think that's like, I don't know, something I always try to get across is like, nobody's been through everything in your life but you. Nobody's been through all of it but you and you. That's my girl. I don't know. But again, it does feel important to me to say, because I never want it to come across as like egoic or like it's this paradoxical thing that truly the best thing you can do for other people is heal your shit and nurture yourself, nurture your relationship with yourself. That is the best thing you can do for other people. I can show up more naturally. Like it's like it used to be such a struggle to show up for people in my life. Like I mean, I did it. Of course I did it. Of course. I was raised Catholic. I was a middle child. I was the only girl. I was, from a very young age, it became very clear to me, oh, my parents, and this is to no fault of their own, my parents have enough else to deal with. I will keep my problems in. These will be mine. I will deal with them on my own. I do not need to seek adult guidance. That was how I figured shit out. So yeah, I was always there for the people in my life, and I was constantly basically sacrificing myself so as to be there for other people. And it was like this giant toll. And I think that's what a lot of us do and get caught in that state, because we're sold this idea of like, oh, well, you're not a good person if you focus on yourself, and you need to, I mean, again, it's that distraction of pulling us away from the internal mind, the internal world, and telling us to focus everything out here. It's like, yeah, no, like, well, just pick between the burger and the taco. There's your freedom. You have freedom. Like, it's right out here. It's right in front of you. Rather than going within and asking, what am I really craving? This is beyond food, taste. What am I really craving? What kind of nourishment am I lacking every day that I'm using whatever out here? Obviously, we have to eat, to survive, like, give us energy. Like, I'm not saying that, but you know what I'm saying? It's all a big distraction. Well, especially women, we're socialized to be the givers and the doers, and to be selfless, and to just totally lay ourselves fucking down on the train tracks for any random person that walks by and possibly needs something from us. We're like, oh, wait, yes, absolutely, right away. I mean, I think of it often, and this is in a small way, but this is a great example. Like, men bump into me. They bump into me. I say sorry. What? They don't, and they don't. They fucking don't. A man drops something, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, let me pick that. What? I know, I'm working on it, okay? I'm working on it. But it's like the way in which we've been trained. And, men are not, they've been socialized in a way too. It's like they're also products of their socialization, their programming, whatever. It's just, I can give women credit to the point of like, women are just much more aware of this programming, whereas men are kind of like, oh, it's just like the way it is. I don't think, because I just feel like they're not encouraged to be as, or maybe women are like really forced to be introspective in a way, which is, it actually ultimately is a good thing. We're forced to be because we are forced to be like really self-reliant, Anyway, that's like another thing, but I just am aware that it is profoundly easy for me to show up for the people in my life now that I have a solid relationship with myself and a solid foundation with myself. Now, I'm still learning. I can't do everything. I do certainly feel like I'm definitely somebody, I have an abundance of meaningful relationships and special and important people in my life. I am navigating how to balance that, because it is a lot. It's a lot more than I ever like thought I would have. It's just like, you kind of, when you do heal and when you do like have this relationship to yourself, you do become more magnetic in a way. And that's not just to say, oh, you magnetize anything. It's like you magnetize people and experiences that are more congruent with your soul and with your purpose. There a lot of the like bullshit is cut out, so like you don't find yourself in as many experiences or relationships that are irrelevant. Like, you start to find that you heal, you develop your relationship to yourself, you grow spiritually, you have a higher awareness, you become more magnetic to people, experiences, places, opportunities that are relevant. Like you'll find, like that's what they say, like synchronicities pick up, because you're finding that your life, things just click together better. You're not, like, if I think about my life 10 years, it was just like, I mean, shit's all over the board and you're having like really unpleasant experiences. And like when you're on this path, you really like, your experiences do start to become better and better. And then it's really just a matter of like still dealing with what's within, because of course, like you can't avoid tragedy. Like obviously, like it's a part of life. You don't avoid pain. It's a part of life. You do just start to have a better understanding of how that pain fits into the larger framework of your timeline and your purpose to a degree. Obviously, I think that's the beautiful thing about feelings, is that they can take over to where like you don't see clearly and like you just are in the feeling, and like yes, what, like that still happens, but I don't know. What I'm saying is you essentially become more magnetic to yourself. Like when you know yourself well, you become more magnetic to the things that are like you. Like, so you're just finding like the people you meet, it's like they share your like you're finding people who all the time, it's like I'm just always meeting people who are like in my realm. And it's interesting too, because as you do the healing work, not only do you like get to know yourself better, you allow yourself to expand, because again, you're transcending the mind matrices. So you allow yourself to expand beyond past limiting beliefs, past boundaries that used to tell you like, oh no, well, you can't be, it's subconscious a lot of the time. So it's like, oh, well, you can't be this type of person, you're this type of person. Like, well, you can't be into that because, you know, you're in this like lesbian tomboy category, whatever the fuck it is, you know? You know, give any example. You start to transcend those limiting beliefs, those boundaries, so you start to do more of what you love. Things start to overlap in a fun way. You understand like, oh no, I don't, you know, I'm not interested in the drums because I want to become like a fucking, because I wish I was born a savant and like I was just amazing at it. Like, sure, whatever, that'd be great. But it's like, really, I'm interested in it because I just have a larger general interest in kinesthetic intelligence, in the balance between the right side and the left side of my body. That's why I like kickboxing. That's why I like dancing. That's why I brush my teeth with and write with my non-dominant hand sometimes, because I'm interested in, that's why EMDR therapy was so successful with me. I'm interested in this kinesthetic body intelligence. You start to see how all of your interests really line up and overlap, and they're not these individual, like direct, they're not so individual, they're not so isolated. Anyways, this is long. We're gonna cut it here. Overall, we were all over the board in this. This wasn't even a check-in. This was like, I just had an idea and a thought, and I was like, I need to talk about it because it's been running for, I mean, that's the interesting thing too about ideas, is like, I don't know, just everything is better once you start healing, and once because it's like you're clearing out the clutter. You're clearing out the clutter and you're better able to see through illusion. Of course, I'm not out the woods yet. I mean, I'm still here. And trust me, I'm not out the woods. I'm just, this is a part of it, is like, you do have to reflect on how far you've come, because otherwise, you know, you're just so used to waking up as it can be easy to like overlook, and then you get caught up and you're always kind of looking for the next best thing. Like, I want to be better, I want to be clearer, I want to da 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 da. You're always, it's the same thing as like they've got the carrot dangling out here and you're just like running after it. Better, next, better, more. It's really important to reflect and look back on how far, like just how you've changed, and taking on the healing journey and being able to look back and be like, dude, look at all we went through, and look at all we got ourselves through. Look at everything we've experienced together. You and me, girl. It's fantastic. It builds reflection, like helps build that relationship to self, because it's an activity you do with yourself. Anyways, I'm cutting it here, okay? This was a long one. 59 minutes. Peace and love. Kegs and eggs, you know what I mean?